Hey everyone, it's Taylor Scollin here from The Cable. Today I'm doing another video about the Democratic primary, and I'm going to be focusing on a dark horse candidate, Andrew Yang. Now if you're very online like I am, you probably have heard of Andrew Yang, but in case you haven't, here's the Coles notes of who he is. Yang is a venture capitalist who's running for the Democratic nomination mainly on the platform of universal basic income, giving everyone in the country a monthly check for $1,000. And in spite of never having held elected office and having no real name recognition, Yang has started to pick up a bit of a following, especially online. And he's doing this with attention-grabbing policy ideas and also a willingness to go on podcasts and shows that are popular with people on the internet, things like Joe Rogan. But who is Andrew Yang and what's he all about? Is he good, bad, irrelevant? Should we even care? In this video, I'm going to break down the basics of Yang, the good and the bad. Now let's start with some of the good aspects of Yang's campaign. First of all, I'm a big supporter of universal basic income. I made a video about that, which I linked to in the description, and so I think it's great that Yang is making this the centerpiece focus of his campaign. Now, as I said, his plan is to create a UBI of $1,000 a month, and according to Yang, promoting this idea is the reason why he got in the race in the first place. Now, having Yang in the race brings this idea of UBI into the mainstream political discourse and forces other candidates to react to it. Now, it's almost certain that Yang is not going to win the nomination. He said this himself, but having him in the race talking about UBI day after day makes that an issue in the campaign and pushes people who might otherwise not have talked about it to take a position. So if you support UBI, I think you have to say that Yang is a net positive for the race, because if he wasn't in it, odds are no one would really be talking about this issue. Second, I think that Yang is calling attention to some serious problems that other candidates are not dealing with at all, particularly the challenge of automation and how that's going to lead to joblessness. And automation actually has the potential to pose a major problem to the entire capitalist economic system, because in capitalism, you only get income one of two ways, either from working, that's your labor income, or from owning things, that's your capital income. Now, most people get most of their income from labor, from working for a living. But what happens when robots start to take more and more of the work for themselves? Labor income falls. Now, if you believe that automation is going to accelerate, then this poses a problem. How do you deal with falling labor incomes? Now, Yang's solution is different from mine. I think the answer is to move away from capitalism and spread around the ownership of stuff so that capital income flows more equally to more people. And I wrote a piece, which I linked to in the description, that argues for this. Now, Yang does not agree with me on this. He wants to protect capitalism, and he sees UBI as a way of achieving that. Now, we do disagree about that, but I think it's important that Yang is calling attention to the problem in the first place, because nobody else is really talking about it, and understanding that there is a problem is the first step to debating the solution. Now, the third thing I like about Yang is that he's willing to introduce unconventional and some would say strange policy ideas into the debate. Now, UBI is one of his policies, but he actually has a bunch that I think are interesting and worth discussing. Providing banking services through the post office, paying for people's moving expenses when they have to relocate for work, publicly financed election campaigns, turning dead malls into public spaces, free marriage counseling. Now, these are all interesting ideas that no one else is talking about, and maybe when you dig into some of them, they actually turn out to be not so great. But it seems to me that almost all of them are worthy of more debate, as they are potential solutions to real problems. Now, too often conventional candidates or candidates who are front runners play it too safe, and they won't bring up unconventional policy solutions that haven't been relentlessly focus group tested and developed in policy think tanks. And what this does in practice is really limits the scope of our thinking about possible solutions to our political problems. So overall, I would say that there's a lot to like about Andrew Yang, and I do think that he is net positive for the Democratic race. But as I already alluded to, I do have some problems with Yang that I think are worth raising. So first of all, some of Yang's policy ideas are actually pretty bad. On immigration, he wants to continue militarizing the borders and his so-called path to citizenship for undocumented people takes 18 years, which is probably way too long. Now, I made another video, which I linked to in the comments, where I talked about why these shutting down of the borders ideas are so repellent to me. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But the second issue I see with Yang, and really the more important one, is that he doesn't have any structural critique of the way the economy is set up. He doesn't see any problem with a tiny number of people owning the vast majority of wealth in the country. Now, he does want to transfer some income through UBI each year, but fundamentally, he's comfortable with capitalism. He just wants to make it more human-centered. And you can see the shortfalls of this approach when you actually look into what Yang means when he says human-centered capitalism. Now, you can go to his website and read this for yourself, but there are 3 ways that he says that he wants to change capitalism to make it more human-centered. Number 1 is to change the way GDP is measured to account for metrics around happiness. Number 2 is to create stricter regulations on corporations. Number 3 is to create a cryptocurrency to reward people who create social value. Now, these all seem like fine ideas, I guess. I don't really object to any of them, but they will not fix the root problem of the system. Because that root problem is that a tiny number of people own the vast majority of the stuff, and as a consequence, wield inordinate power over everyone else. And it's from that root problem that the other problems that capitalism creates flow. And because Yang doesn't actually see this root problem, all of his solutions to the problems created by capitalism will always fall short. And this is why I prefer someone like Bernie Sanders, who does have a structural critique of the economy as it stands, and is able to identify the root problem as wealth concentration. So with all that being said, I do like Andrew Yang, and I like what he's doing to bring new ideas and thinking into the democratic race. I think that's valuable. I especially like that he's centering a universal basic income and pushing that idea into the mainstream political discourse. But at the end of the day, his ideas do not get to the root problems that we are experiencing right now. In order to do that, you need the type of structural critique that only one candidate in the race offers, and that's Mr. Bernard Sanders. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want more videos from me and from the cable, make sure to hit that subscribe button. All the links to follow us are in the description, along with other videos and reading that you might find interesting. Till next time, I'm Taylor Scollin from the cable.